Great. Everybody should be able to see my screen. Let me move this on over here. Yeah, so this is going to be relatively quick. We'll keep it under half an hour total with Q&A if anybody wants to talk. Just wanted to talk about what's going on with COVID-19 robocalls, and this is one of the first things that we noticed popping up on March 16th. Just to give some background on who I am and who we are, right? We're Nomorobo, pretty well known in the industry. We're the first robocall blocking solution. It was 6.5 years ago. My name is Aaron Foss. I'm the founder. I was the winner of the FTC's Robocall Challenge back in 2013. And in that time, we've now stopped over 1.5 billion robocalls across all of the major carriers, residential carriers in the United States. Our blacklist is over 2.5 million known robocallers, and we're adding 1,500 new robocallers every day. So just to kind of give you a little bit of scope of the general problem, I want to talk to some trends, again, specifically with the COVID-19 and the coronavirus things, because when you have something that kind of is as scary as a virus outbreak, and then everybody is at home, right, especially seniors, you put those things together, it's just been a field day for robocallers. So I want to give a little bit of a couple of examples here. I want to talk about some trends on things that we're seeing. And then, again, can kind of ask some questions on what's going on. So the first one is that we identified. This is one of the first ones, which is kind of an oldie but a goodie, but then they mashed it together with COVID-19. So this one is a Social Security scam, but then they decided to, sprinkle in some COVID seasoning. So let's play this one.
Hello, this is a call from the Social Security Administration. During these difficult times of the coronavirus, we regret to inform you that we have got an order to suspend your socials immediately within 24 hours due to suspicious and fraudulent activities found on your socials. We are contacting you as this case is critical and needs your urgent attention. To get more information about this case, please call immediately on our department number 888-991-2325. I repeat, 888-991-2325.
So this is, again, one of the things where they're taking an old scam, putting in a coronavirus kind of thing to get people worried, and then send it on out. Fun part about this, shut down very, very quickly with the help of with Joel, who's on this call, and Somos in general, because it was using a toll-free number. We sent it on over to them. They immediately checked it out and immediately shut it down. So this process has been around for a while, but it just really, I'll give a shout out to everybody over there. On these, again, the oldies but goodies, but now you freshen it up with some coronavirus worry. This next one is actually one of the ones that I think is actually the worst, where it's a complete out-and-out scam that is based on coronavirus and is taking advantage of everybody's fears.
Thank you for calling Coronavirus Hotline. Because of the limited testing, we are first taking Medicare members. Will the free at-home test be just for you or for you and your spouse?
And this is one of the first ones that we saw, again, on March 16th.
Hello?
So, hi. So the...
Hello?
Let me back up there. There we go. Shut that guy up. What's also interesting here is, it says, thank you for calling the coronavirus hotline. So all of these recordings are made from our honeypot. None of these are outbound. These are all inbound. So this was kind of one of the ones that here on the research department, we were like, oh, that's kind of a little bit weird. But it must be something on the back end with call it the lead gen, however the scammers are getting that, with the generating the traffic, and then, oh, thank you for calling the coronavirus hotline. Maybe somebody gets confused or something like that. Same deal here. We don't know. We didn't take this to the end. We didn't buy any of these things. So at best, right, they would have just stolen the people's money. At worst, they might have sent them a fake testing kit. Maybe they would have, spit into a jar, and it would have, it was a pregnancy kit test that all of a sudden somebody's like, nope, don't got coronavirus, and I'm also not pregnant. So that's, and you can tell that here, because this was so dangerous, because they're talking about Medicare. So they're obviously aiming at older folks. And again, they're to talk about you and your spouse. So again, this one was shut down very quickly. Also, thanks to the help of the FTC and the FCC. together. And you might have seen this one on Friday. I think it was released Friday afternoon, Friday evening, right? Giving 48 hours for these gateway providers to cut off these kinds of things. And they were helped by data that us and some other companies provided. And really what I love about this is that the FTC again, and the FCC were able to very quickly, literally within a matter of days, swoop in, shut it down, and then also bring some visibility to these, specifically these three gateway providers. And again, working together with US Telecom, I think that this process, and I was mentioning it beforehand, the worst of times kind of brings out the best in people sometimes. And we've always had these all this data and these relationships and things, but being able to work, really, really quickly and kind of shut these things down has been fantastic. I put this slide in because we all kind of know how gateway carriers work, but I thought that it was just kind of important to say that these are really, really important right now, shutting down those gateway carriers, because they really do help, right? We're on the last, not even last mile, last inches, right before the phone gets to your ear. But if we kind of cooperate with the FTC, the FCC, US Telecom, Somos, everybody in the industry, the carriers are, doing their thing, but I think it's our job to do this. But it's just important to show that that shutting down those gateway carriers really, really helps. As we keep on going further out into the, we'll call it the Badlands, right? Then we just start having people that are taking advantage of a bad situation. So I don't know if you guys know these two idiots, but they're from a show called Storage Wars that was on A&E. Yeah, they saw a good thing, and they decided to jump on the coronavirus scared bandwagon. So let's listen to them.
Hello, this is Dan and Laura Dotson from your favorite show, Storage Wars. With all the fears of the coronavirus pandemic, we at StorageAuctions.net want to ease your concerns and frustrations. As many states are issuing statewide stay-at-home self-quarantine orders, we want you to know that we're here to help, and we're only a phone call away if you'd like to list your online auctions today and keep a safe environment for your employees and buyers. Please register. The best part about our system is that is without any fees to the.
Yeah, so that goes on and on, but you get the gist. Right? So if you want to go and sell all your crap to Dan and Laura Dotson, and that actually is. So again, are these, is anybody going to shut them down? Well, we did, right? So we just feel that that's not, and we're an editorial service, that in times like this, they are obviously making illegal robocalls. Will the FTC and FCC shut down these two? Probably not, right? Can any of the other parties do anything? No. Is it honestly anybody, even on this call's responsibility to shut these down? No, but I know that Nomorobo users don't want to get these kinds of calls. So also that's the other part where I think that it's part of the discussion that I've been having internally, and especially even on this call, is where everybody fits into the ecosystem, right? So those outright scams and spams, especially using toll-free, real easy to shut them down and super cooperative. The other scams that use gateway carriers, okay, then we need to get US Telecom, we can do the tracebacks, we can get the carriers involved, and then the FTC and the FCC need to step in. For things like this, which are just more annoying and things like that, that's where services like Nomorobo and the competition can kind of come in. Especially now that, as I mentioned before, that everybody's working from home now, right? The phone's on your desk, sitting there. So where you might have, especially at home, right? You might not have ever heard your phone ring. Now all of a sudden, people are calling you up and just kind of annoying you. There is some good news in this whole thing, is that honestly, there are not huge volumes on any of these types of robocalls. If anything, actually, we've seen global robocall volumes decrease. I can only guess why. My thought is that the call centers are being paused, right? That you can't consolidate all of these people. So either if it's domestic, right, the call centers that are in Florida and California, right, those, you just can't get that many people together in a building. Now, internationally, again, the Indian and the Philippine call centers, I think everybody's a little bit more worried about those kinds of things. So there's really no point in sending out robocalls if you're not going to have somebody at the other end who's going to be completing the scam. So again, things like the Social Security scam, the boiler room scams, we have definitely seen a decrease in them. But some of the other scams, the health insurance and the lead gen on that side, we've absolutely not seen anything. If anything, those have increased because all those people usually work from home anyway. Again, it's a lead gen. So, and on the scam side, we have not seen, again, huge volumes. It is not like the #1 robocall scam right now, which is a good thing. Yet, right? We're not quite sure what that's going to be. We are really only 3 weeks into this, and every business has had to retool. And I always say that the robocalls are a business, and they will be retooling, right? Are they going to be setting up remote call centers and things like that? So again, we're keeping our finger on the pulse of how these things are going. And that's what I wanted to talk about. A lot of people have seen this slide again, but I just wanted to reiterate on how we're doing this. This always kind of comes up, how we're detecting everything. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick overview on what we are doing over here. And kind of before I also get into here, the other piece is if any of this stuff is interesting to you, or you want to dig in, or anybody wants data or information or anything like that, my contact information will be at the end. I'm more than happy to work with anyone to help solve this problem, right? So the first thing that we're doing is the call frequency analysis on our residential lines. So we're supported on every major VoIP carrier in the United States, and we also have a 350,000 line honeypot. So that's lines that we bought, we own them all, and that's how we get these incoming calls. We can record them, transcribe them, analyze them. We'll get to that in a second. Analyzing the call content is really important on these coronavirus scams specifically. How can we tell if it's a health insurance scam, right? Just from the phone number and the volumetrics, I think it's very, very difficult. That's how we do it on our end, because we have our honeypot, which can go and grab these recordings and these snapshots. So another interesting thing is if we did this with US Telecom yesterday, they saw a phone number that the message has changed as of yesterday. We were able to kind of roll back in time, doing almost like a time travel of, hey, this same phone number was pushing out health insurance scams 2 weeks ago. Then it was pushing out coronavirus scams. Now it's pushing out a third type of scam. So doing that, we have this whole big analysis of the call content. Not on the consumer side, obviously the residential lines, we never touch those because we're very privacy conscious. But the honeypot side is a real valuable resource that if anybody wants access to, talk to us and we can run some reports and things. The second thing on this end is we're working towards a big part of this is allowing the good calls through. I have a whole slide on that coming up next, but the user reports are really what's super helpful. Yes, on the reporting the bad robocalls that slip through, but more importantly on the good robocalls that need to get through. So in times like this where the schools and police and fire and prescriptions and doctors' offices and everything like that, usually I go a little bit deeper here. I have a whole slide on that, so hang on a little bit. And then we have our classification, our machine learning. That's how we go and drop it into these different buckets. I know a lot of people have always want to know kind of, oh, is this a health insurance scam? Is this a social security scam? Is this an IRS scam? That's all kind of nice and well and good and interesting and whatever. But on our end, we have all that data behind it. The only thing we really show is this a good call that should be allowed through, or is this a bad call that shouldn't be? So that's just our kind of opinionated view of this whole thing. And ultimately what it does is it generates the blacklist and the whitelist. And this is a chart that I don't usually show, but I rolled it back to the beginning of last year to show everybody how many numbers we've added to our black and white list. And if you notice, there's roughly, you want to call it, 60 to 80,000, right? We started seeing an uptick in new numbers again this year. The robocalls started using more numbers. And we usually added, let's say, roughly about 400 whitelists. But if you go follow it down here, right, in March and going into April, that's almost double, right? It's obviously doubled, almost tripled. We've set up a lot more tools on our end to proactively detect the good calls. So we've set up a whole bunch of, that was the first thing that we spun up, was to be able to detect the coronavirus blacklisted numbers, and also while we're there to make sure that the good calls are getting through, because again, that's super, super vital. Honestly, everybody on this call, right, we want to keep fraud out, we want to keep the bad calls out, but potentially more important is always ensuring that the good calls and the good callers get through. And just as a note, we've worked with some of the other called reputation management companies phone number reputation. In all, we have gotten 11 numbers in total from everyone. I personally just don't see it as any kind of viable option on, there's some preemptive whitelisting and things, but again, you see, we whitelisted 1,100 new numbers in real time as we saw them coming through. Literally, 2 or 3 here or there is really not making a dent. We really do need the technology to be looking at these millions of calls, analyzing the content, and doing it there. And I think that in the last, I'd say the last week, like this week, I've lost track of all the days. I guess starting on Thursday, our whitelisting has dropped dramatically because we have whitelisted all of the numbers that are pushing out the good robocallers. Again, police, fire, coronavirus warnings, and things like that. But just keep this in mind: is at this point, again, you'll notice that the number of blacklisted numbers has gone back down to a good number, the number of whitelisted numbers. So just kind of keep that in mind, that through all this, right, it's super important to make sure that all good calls are getting through while we are keeping out the bad guys, and that balance is what we continually go on. So that's about all I have on my prepared pieces. If anybody, so we put together a coronavirus resource center at Nomorobo. If you go there, nomorobo.com/coronavirus, that has, you can download our real-time, sorry, not real-time, we update it roughly every couple of days. It's a list of about 400 phone numbers that we are tracking that have shown that they are pushing out some sort of coronavirus-related robocall. So again, it could be in any of these buckets. It could be outright fraud. It can be maybe calls that you don't want. But we put that out there if anybody wants to start digging through it and looking. We also have a couple of the examples that I had shown you. So if anybody wants to kind of pull any of these for their own research, feel free. If you want to dig in with me, drop me an email at it's aaron@nomorobo.com. More than happy to work with everybody. I think, honestly, I'll stop there. I know we said that we don't usually get a lot of discussion on these calls, but I don't know if we can now open it up to some discussion or any questions or anything like that.
Hey, Aaron, I'll break the ice here. Couple things. First off, thanks for all your efforts. Great job in surgically honing in on these scams with your ability to analyze the content. Kind of jealous that we can't do this at scale. But couple just observations and questions. One is on the AT&T side. I've mentioned this before on a CFCA no session. Around March 20th, we've seen about a 40 to 45% drop in overall suspected robocalls coming into the network. And I was wondering, did you see an overall drop, and around when did you see an overall drop in robocalls? Just generally?
We did, and that's exactly the same around that time. Right, we first started seeing the coronavirus robocalls on the 16th of March, and that's when kind of everything was ramping up. And yes, roughly around the 20th, the 21st. I think because everybody, that was, I think, the height of the kind of the panic and things, and then everything kind of dropped. Even the news stories that I see with CNN, they're saying, AT&T and Verizon are reporting that, phone call volumes, because so many people are making more and more calls. But yeah, our view, so we have seen that pattern that there are more calls being made person to person, but absolutely the total robocall volume has dropped. I think it went from, at least on our data, 35% down to 30 in, and that was just for March. So that was still taking into consideration the beginning part. But if you want me to dig into actually week by week, more than happy to do that. But we are seeing the same general trends. Actually, I'm thinking about it. Maybe if we do run that over day by day, I think that'd be really interesting. Yeah, if you're interested in that, I'm interested in that too, and we can send it around and talk about it.
Okay, great. And then, the other question is, you mentioned the gateway providers and, the U.S. Telecom and the regulators going after, quickly tracing back with everybody's help on this call and tracing back to the source and putting those carriers out there, and perhaps those carriers, I think there was a Wall Street Journal article 2 days ago that those carriers disengaged with accepting traffic from their robocall customers. Any sense, like we have no ability to see this, but is there any sense that those guys shutting down the robocallers, those 3 carriers that were singled out, any sense that you're seeing a reduction because of that, or it's for us, it's hard to tell whether the lockdowns in India and other countries and the U.S. is really what's clamped down on some of these robocall campaigns, or do we honestly think that trace back and the calling out of those 3 gateway providers had an impact?
Yeah, I'm torn on that same thing, right? Again, and on this call, we can be a little bit more open, right? We have no idea, or I have no idea, right, what works, and that everybody's doing so many different things. And, is this the be all and end all? No, it's obviously not. There's not that thing. But the fact that within literally days, right, we started getting U.S. telecom data, again, by the 16th, I think this was pushed out, maybe a week and a half later, something to that effect, that then, and look, these 3 gateway providers, I'm sure that this isn't the first time that they've heard from the FCC, right? So never let a good crisis go to waste. Do I think that this is nice low-hanging fruit to everybody can get around, like, hey, wait, we have proof that they are coronavirus related. It's in the news. It's super important. So therefore we can, help shut them down. Is it going to make a big impact? Look, I don't want to be fatalistic here, right? But these guys are good. They're going to come on back. We know the way that this whole thing works, but that also doesn't mean that we shouldn't waste time, or we're going to waste time by doing these things. So yeah, so I think that all of us doing this, while it seems that we're kind of shoveling shit against the tide, I really do think that things like this do help. And if anything, because again, selfishly, I've been pushing a ton of this stuff out to the media. I've been shining a light on these shady companies. And when that happens, the reporters like to see that, because now all of a sudden they can find the bad guys, right? Because these are usually faceless kinds of things. So I think that it does have a lot of impact. Will it be solving it? No. And I'm sure that as soon as possible, I'm not even going to say as soon as safely, right? Those guys are going to be jammed in a call center as soon as possible. They're going to be right back doing their same thing. There's going to be a lot of money to be made. And yeah, we haven't heard the last of these. But I also don't think that should stop us from trying these things.
Thanks for sharing, and on behalf of CFCA, thanks for your tireless efforts in combating these problems. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And again, I love that idea of breaking it down by day. I wouldn't have thought of that unless we had gotten on this call, but I'm going to make a note of that. I'll send that around. Well, Darcy, Francis had a question?
Yes, Aaron. It's Francis David from the Canadian Radio and Telecom Commission, the Intel unit. I have a quick question for you. Have you seen any spoofing of the various public health agency hotline toll-free numbers that are broadcasted out to the public?
We have not. If anything, we have seen the opposite of that. So we've been whitelisting. And again, I've literally had my own fingers in that pot. I've been running tons of queries along with the team to make sure that isn't happening, especially things like the COVID results line from like HHS. I think that is actually a toll-free. Joel sent that on over to me because I had that same worry. Are the robocallers going to spoof that number? Especially when, again, you figure that you're waiting for a COVID-19, the results of your COVID-19 test. You will answer any call right there. And if it is, we haven't seen that pattern though, at least as of yet. So that might change, and if it does, I'll let everybody know. But no, I would not worry about that, nor have we seen that pattern.
Okay. Thanks for the information. We only saw, I think, one like really small scale campaign, a few, perhaps 26,000 calls from a carrier spoofing one of our line, but we haven't figured out what was the end goal of all that. But
yeah, and you know what? So you even mentioned it, like the small ones. Keep an eye on it though, because what we've seen also is, especially way back at the very beginning, we saw them like almost doing test campaigns.
Hey guys, I don't know if it's everybody, but Francis, when you turned your video on, it seemed to hog all the bandwidth. So
sorry.
We're very choppy.
Okay, no problem.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah, to reiterate, the question was, again, with spoofing those same numbers. Oh, and then Francis had said he saw like a small test case, or he said a small volume. We saw them try a bunch of these kinds of different messages to see which one kind of worked. I'm sure that they're just doing A/B testing and things like that. So when we see a small thing, we absolutely keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't grow into something big. And then there's also those ones that are just kind of like big that just kind of slam in. Like, again, the storage wards one, while not necessarily a scam, that was they loaded it up, fired it on out, and then went to town. So yeah, absolutely keep an eye on any of those little indicators, because those could turn into something big.
Okay, thank you for this info. Much appreciated.
Yeah, my pleasure. Cool. Anyone else? Or... I think we're cool. 11:29. If anybody is interested in doing this again, or just again even getting together on a Zoom call or something like that to answer some of these questions, I think maybe in the coming weeks it would be super helpful. So again, I'll volunteer my time if everybody wants that. I'll show from the trenches, or maybe we can coordinate and see what's going on together. I think that would be valuable to me, and I think it would be valuable to everybody on the call.
Hey, Aaron, are you still? I hope it's not real choppy. Are you still updating your COVID-19 feed?
Yeah, so we haven't done it in a couple of days. We're trying to figure out a way to automate that, because yeah, exactly that. I wasn't sure if people were going to be using it in real time. So yeah, if it is being updated just very slowly and manually, but if it would be helpful to get that on a real-time basis, I can make that happen.
Yeah, I know it's useful to us, and maybe Sarah could send out to the larger group here the link in case folks didn't get your initial email. But I thought that was pretty helpful for the carriers that don't have access to the content to be able to real time look at COVID-19 related scams, do our own little investigation, and put blocks across our networks as well.
That's actually really great feedback, because I got some other feedback that people, because it's basically anything that mentions coronavirus, so it does need to be manually reviewed. There's again about 450 active numbers right now that we're kind of like watching. So yeah, as an automated tool, ingesting it directly into your system, it's probably not the best idea, but going through just to get some trends and things. Again, I got some negative feedback where people were like, oh, it's a little bit too, we just want the scams. But yeah, if you're using it to kind of as another tool in your arsenal, more than happy to accelerate just like our IRS feed, the real-time feed for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and everybody can kind of go to this nomorobo.com/coronavirus. It's a CSV that you could download the entire list. All dates are in UTC. In that, this is another question. I should probably put a note on that page to try and see. We have the last time that we detected activity on that number, and then the content of it. So you can kind of just see going all the way back to, again, March 16th, and we're continually updating that. So if anybody has any feedback on that, that would be super helpful. Just like what Adam was suggesting. Great. With that, I will stop